In April, Uncle Sam takes a census as required by the Constitution to determine state representation in Congress. 140,000 trained men and women will visit America's 6 million farms at the rate of 200,000 a day. The city's population must be enumerated in 2 weeks. Every home must be visited. Every person must be counted. They'll cover miles of city streets from New York to San Francisco. When your census taker calls on you, cooperate and make sure you count in America's future.
We did not have a TV for a long time.
There weren't very many TVs around in the 50s.
We had a radio, and then we got a TV, and it was, I think, in the 50s.
We had only 3 channels to choose from.
We got our first TV when I was about 3, and that was a big deal.
When we got the TV, it was a black and white one.
This was taken when I was 9 years old, so I was 9 before we got our first television.
My family bought a TV in about 1955. A bunch of us would come home and watch the George Gobel show.
I'm going to accompany myself on the guitar. I never took any lessons or anything like that. I just taught myself. I don't play very good, but that's because I'm not a very good teacher.
And in the Twilight Zone.
The Twilight Zone.
We liked that.
We watched way too much television.
Well, every Saturday I'd watch Heavy Duty.
Was the one with the Roadrunner. And Wile E. Coyote.
The Mickey Mouse Club was after school.
Donald Duck.
Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke.
Paladin.
The Little Rascals.
And Wagon Train.
And the other one that was on Saturday morning. Oh, The Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger, that was my favorite one, was The Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger.
Rifleman.
The Rifleman.
Leave It to Beaver.
Leave it to Beaver.
Ed Sullivan.
With Elvis Presley headlining tonight.
Oh, what was it? Sky King.
Sky King.
That was an airplane. He had an airplane. An airplane.
Out of the clear blue of the western sky.
Was there a question on there about televisions?
One of my favorite TV programs was called Winky Dink and You. Winky Dink was a cartoon character who used to get into difficulties.
Jack! Yes, Winky?
Oh, Jack, you're not being nice.
And when he got trapped in a well or had to cross a river where there was no bridge, the kids who were watching the show had to help Winky Dink out. You could order for 50 cents a plastic sheet.
Let's watch her as she puts up her magic window. Now, Helen's unpacking her Winky Dink kit right now, getting out her magic crayons and her erasing cloth. And now she's going to get out her magic window. And you do just as she's doing, boys and girls.
That would go on the TV screen. It would stick there by static electricity.
Watch her now. Watch and see. You'll see she rubs her magic window. And you do that, too. That's where we get some of our magic into the magic windows. You see how she rubs it? Fine. Now she's going to put her magic window right up on the screen of the television set. That's right. And you do it just the way she does, boys and girls. It's very important. Now press it out like she does from the centers to the corners so that it becomes smooth.
And once the plastic sheet was in place, you would get out a set of crayons, and then you would draw the bridge that Winky Dink needed to get across the river.
Now let's draw the pipe in the captain's mouth. Captain, how about a light to try out your new pipe, huh? Oh. Well, when you get to back, make sure it's strong. That's the kind of bit you want to use, huh?
Okay.
This was our version of video games. It was really, really primitive.
Beginning April 1st, the United States conducts the 17th decennial census. The census taker who visits you may look like this, or this. But his credentials will look like this. The census taker will show his credentials when he calls. Make sure you count in America's future.
We had a party line then.
And those were called party lines.
And there were party lines.
Oh, party line.
Party line.
We had a party line.
And that was back years and years ago.
There were at least 2 people on every telephone line.
There was like 4 neighbors on the same phone system. There's like 5 families or 3 families.
My grandmother had 10 on her line.
10 on a party line.
When we wanted to use the phone, we could, as long as the other people in the city weren't also using the phone.
You had to wait.
We had to wait until they finished.
You had to wait till they got off.
There was one phone in the house.
We had a phone.
And it hung on the wall, and you had to lift off the earpiece and ring a crank and then speak into a mouthpiece part that was attached to the part on the wall and tell the operator who you were calling.
I called my grandmother every night, and one day I was in a store. I wasn't very old. I was probably maybe first grade or kindergarten. This woman kept watching me in the store, and finally she came around and asked my mother if we lived in Mount Liberty and if I called my grandmother every night. And mother said, yeah. And she goes, well, I'm the operator, and I thought I recognized her voice. That was kind of weird.
And when the phone would ring, if it rang once, it was for us, for our family. If it rang 2 times, it was for someone else, someplace else in Marietta.
So if you heard a phone ring and it wasn't your ring, you could pick it up and listen to your neighbor talk to somebody. People, that was really a no-no. You shouldn't do that, you know.
And you could actually pick it up when it rang 2 times and listen to the other conversation.
You could eavesdrop.
You could eavesdrop. Yeah. Yeah, but a lot of women especially did that.
And of course, we didn't ever do that.
I remember that our first telephone number was 33-ring-3.
Frontier 39447 was a number.
22280 or something.
Hunter 59321.
GA 4216 or something like that. That was your phone number.
Nowadays, there are a lot more digits.
This census will show women outnumber men. This has not always been true. The 1890 style, 30 million women in this country. 1910 style, 44 million. 1930 style, 60 million. And today, 75 million. And the style is, cooperate with your census takers.
My dad always had trucks.
We had a car, a blue Pontiac.
And it's a very old car, because I'm a very old person.
We did not have a car when I was born.
Most of the things that we did was going to and from places, either running or walking.
I was saving for my first car in 1950, but I didn't actually buy a car until the late 50s.
The first car we had was a 48 Pontiac.
My dad, being the mechanic that he was, took a Crosley body of a, actually made it into a kind of a semi-truck car thing. Big headlights like this on top. It actually looked like a frog in the front.
My dad worked for the dry cleaners, and the dry cleaning people let him drive the dry cleaning truck. And I learned to drive on a 1953 Chevrolet, standard 3-speed on the column. And back then, gasoline was 12 cents a gallon.
It was a used car, so it probably wasn't very much back then. Probably several $100s. But I remember I had to borrow money from my father in order to pay for the car.
I was probably about 9 years old at that time, and I would drive that up and down the streets out. And the streets at that time were not paved. They were all dirt roads. And the dust would just billow up.
The United States didn't always look like this. Here's the way the census takers saw it in 1790, 1800, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 1890 to 1940. Everybody counts in 1950.
And we always had some type of a ball to play whatever season.
Yeah, we would usually play some kind of ball.
And that was always the toys that we played with, was a football, basketball, baseball, football, or something. Whoever had a ball, that's who we played. And we was able to climb the wall, go into the stadium and play all day.
From daylight till dark.
Another toy that was very memorable from the 50s was the hula hoop.
Become a hula hoop expert.
I was the best at doing the hula hoop.
They were tremendously popular.
Round the neck's called Kill the Buzzard. Round your waist, the natural. Slip it way down and do the knee knocker.
I could keep it up for a long time.
One of my favorite toys was my tricycle
I played with a little tricycle I had.
I used to ride it up and down the driveway and up and down the street in front of our house.
But I never did ride it, I'd always push it.
Typical for me to receive a doll for Christmas every year until I was about 12.
She's a wonderful doll. She's ideal.
And one year I received a doll that could walk. All the others had been baby dolls. And one year I received a doll that could walk. And this doll was named Christine May. My cousin, who lived downstairs, who was much older than I, helped to name her. And I could hold her hand and she would walk along beside me as I went along. The picture that I have of her had been folded into 3 parts because I carried it in my wallet.
Then I had some G.I. Joe figurines, and I'd use Mom's spoons to make the path and build forts with it. And sometimes I forget to bring the spoons in and Mom would get mad at me.
I had this pedal car. It was called a Super Sport car. I got it when I was about 6, and it even had a gear shift. It was very sophisticated to my way of thinking.
Where will the center of population be after the 1950 census? Watch how it has moved since 1790 from Chesapeake Bay across Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Southern Ohio, Indiana. Where is the center of population today? We will know when the 17th decennial census is completed.
Let's see, my mother, she stayed at home. She was like the mother chick, and she always waited for her little chickie chicks come home after their sports games.
And my mother was stayed at home and took care of the house and everything.
My mom raised 7 kids, so she was a busy homemaker.
My mother mostly was a housewife and stayed at home.
And so Mom raised 5 kids, and 4 of those kids were girls. And so, girls, I think, are a little bit more complicated raising than boys.
She would be there watching her big time wrestling, and sometimes she called the bad guys bad names, but she also drank her coffee and smoked her cigarettes waiting for her little chicks to get home, and then she went to bed.
The house was always neat, and we always had good meals. I'd come home from school and I could smell what she was cooking for the night, and we always had big dinners.
Sure, she did the things back in that time period. You got the little whipping or this or thing for punishment. And we, as the 4 boys in our family, it didn't hurt us, and it helped us to grow up to be better people.
My dad was a construction worker, heavy equipment operator. Worked pretty hard, real hard.
And my dad worked for the Columbia Gas of Ohio. He went to work every day and came home after working there.
He was a provider. Whatever he could do, he would provide for us.
We knew what everyone's role was in our family. Always did something on Saturday nights, had a dance or made pizza or something. Always had a big Sunday meal.
She went to the football games, the basketball games, and she had her little cowbell, and she would ring that, and she wore 2 of them out by ringing it so much that she made holes in them and had to get new ones. So that was my home life.